Got this 2011 Honda Civic here in the garage. This is one that had the vibrations inside the cabin. We ended up changing the engine mounts. It's back because she recently, yesterday, went to one of those quick oil change places, and I'm assuming they stripped out the threads, and they told her, "Oh, your car needs to go to a mechanic ASAP. It's dripping oil." And she's like, "Well, it wasn't doing it before it came in here." And they just kind of gave her the boot, said, "Take it to a mechanic." It was so bad that they had to run. She said they were using an impact gun. They had to run a different bolt into the oil pan, and they gave her her original bolt. So, yeah, someone over there screwed up, and what they did is they didn't want to take responsibility for it. So they cross-threaded it even more, I'm assuming, did what they had to get the car out of their shop, and the oil pan is now dripping. So we're gonna see what we could do, see if we could fix it or if it needs a whole new oil pan. Okay, so here goes the dripping drain bolt. You can see they did put a new bolt in it, new washer. You can see it dripping. It's not a horrible drip, it's just a slow one. But let's see if this thing is loose because the threads are messed up. So I haven't touched it yet. Let's see. Let's go forward with it first. Oh yeah, look at that. Look how loose it is. There's no thread in this thing. No force at all. That's crazy. You just take it out with your fingers if you wanted to. As you can see, I got a little bit of a mess going on here, and that's because I started to remove the bolt. There it goes right there. And it caught me by surprise because I did one complete turn of the bolt and it literally just flew right out. And that's why I got the mess all over the floor. So there was absolutely no threads engaging on this bolt. You know, the owner said that she did hear them because, you know, they have you wait in the car while they're doing the oil change. She said she did hear them using the impact gun, to do an oil change. She said it's weird because I never hear them use an impact gun to do an oil change. But this time I could hear them and I could feel the vibrations, of them using an impact gun on an oil pan. It's freaking crazy. These people, and the problem is they get away with it. They keep getting away with it because they pitched the customer this BS story. Oh, it was like that before it came in. Or someone else messed it up before, whatever. They come up with any excuse that they can. And the excuse that they told her was the salt on the road is what caused this. The corrosion from the salt from being in winter caused this, and there was no way to avoid it. Are you kidding me? They pitched her whatever story that they could to get her out of there, because once the car leaves from there, it's no longer their problem. You understand what I'm saying? Whatever the repairs turn out to be, whether we can fix and put new threads in that oil pan or if the whole pan has to be replaced, is out of their ballpark now. So they could not care less, because the second you leave and you try to come back and they say, well, it was fine when it left here. Simple as that. So the oil is draining out right now, and I'm going to go ahead and clean up the mess that I just made, and we'll see what we can do with this. Okay, so here's the drain bolt that came off of the car. It's a M14 by 1.5K. The tap I'm going to be using is slightly larger. It's a M15 by 1.5, and this is going to be the new drain bolt. Of course, we have to get a washer for it, which we have washers right here. So here goes the original bolt that was in the engine when it first went in for the oil change. And this right here explains how ignorant the person who was working on this car is. Okay, because this is what came out the car. Let's see if we can get this to focus. The threads on this thing are perfectly fine. No problems at all, okay? And when they stripped out the threads on the aluminum pan, what's their first instinct? Get another bolt, the same exact bolt. Oh, let's see if this will fix it. Why would it fix it? There's nothing wrong with this bolt. The problem is the stripped threads on the oil pan. So this right here, the fact that you tried to put a different bolt on, just shows me how ignorant that person is. Because it's not going to do anything. It's no different from putting the original bolt back in it because the threads are stripped on the pan. So I hope that makes sense, okay? Let's see if this works. Let's see if we can use the M15 by 1.5 tap and put new taps in the oil pan and get this new bolt in it. Since we're using the same thread pitch, I made sure to get the thread started on the existing threads, and then once it catches and the tap is going in straight, you can see it's biting and we're making new threads now. and you can see there's like little chunks of aluminum right there. So I'm not going to go in too far. I'm just going to start backing it out now. And the reason for that is we don't want to push any of the aluminum chunks inside the oil pan. We want to try to clear out whatever we can. Some of it's going to make it inside the pan, but we'll deal with that later on. For now, let's try to get this tapped out. So I'm going to back it out now to clean up the chips that have come off the oil pan. And we're going to keep repeating this process until we can get the tap all the way in. What's nice is this end is like a 3/8. You could use a 11mm ratcheting wrench and it fits perfectly in the end, and you could use that to run your tap in. So I made some progress right there, so I'm just going to go ahead and back it out, clean out the chips, and just keep doing this. Now keep in mind, you don't have to run the tap all the way into the pan. In fact, you might actually damage something, because you could see the boss for the drain plug sits lower than the rest of the pan. So eventually you're going to start hitting like this metal over here, which you don't want. So you just want to make or let the tap go in deep enough to accommodate the new bolt that you're going to be putting in there. And as you can see, the threads aren't very long, so you don't need to run that tap all the way in. Okay, so I am done using the tap, and because of the method I was using of, just going in a little bit and backing out to clean out the tap, this is all the aluminum shavings that I was able to get off of the tap. That's a lot of shavings. You definitely don't want that inside the engine, and you got to figure, if you just keep pushing the tap all the way in, you're gonna end up pushing all these metal shavings inside the pan. So this is a really good method for making sure the majority of the shavings don't make their way inside of there. Now that the tap has gone in deep enough to accommodate the new bolt that's going to go in, I have no choice but to use the oil, the good oil that we just drained out of this engine, and use that to flush out the system. So the whole point here is we're not going to pour all of it, just some of the oil back into the engine with the bolt off of it from on the oil pan. And that's going to help flush out any metal shavings that might have worked their way into the pan from using the tap. It's going to help flush them out, and we'll have the pan on here sitting. So I hope all of that makes sense. Align it just a little bit better, something like that. Alright, so let's come up top now. Now this is the oil that we just drained out of the car, and this thing just had an oil change done yesterday, so this oil is still good. But we're going to use some of it to flush out the oil pan. We're not going to pour all of it. That should be good. I could hear it draining out the bottom already. And there it goes, draining. So I hope all of that makes sense on how we're trying to almost like back flush the system to ensure that we get out any metal shavings that might have worked their way into the oil pan. And yeah, so it's looking pretty good to me. Once this thing stops draining, we'll go ahead and test fit our new bolt, and of course we got to put a new crush washer on it. Alright, so I got the new drain bolt in. As you can see, new crush washer is on it. I made sure to clean the threads on the bolt with some brake parts cleaner and let it dry before I put it in. It threaded in very nicely with just my fingers alone, and I just have it snug up against the oil pan right now. I looked online real fast, and I found that for these cars, they say the torque spec for the oil drain plug is about 29 pound-feet. So it's what I have my torque wrench set up to, and let's see if we could get this, if we could get it to click at 29 pound-feet, and that's good enough for me. That's where it should be. You should not over tighten these things. This is the exact result of what happens when you over tighten things. So I'll be happy if we could get this to reach 29 foot-pounds without causing any damage. Also, one other thing to note is the bolt that I removed off of here was a 16mm. I don't know if that's the original size since they changed the bolt. But the new bolt is now a 19mm. It doesn't really matter. It's just a different size socket to do an oil change. Okay, but we're set at 29 pound-feet. And hopefully it doesn't strip the threads and it reaches that torque spec without any issues. So let's try it. You know what? I don't feel it. It just doesn't feel right to me. I don't want to keep forcing it. I don't even think this thing is going to reach 29 pound-feet. I think what I'm going to do is leave it there. The only thing I'm worried about is like future oil changes. You know what I mean? It's going to get destroyed in future oil changes if if people aren't careful with this thing. And if she continues, which, you know, the fact of the matter is, these quick oil change places, the only thing they have going for them is that they're convenient. That's about it. Do they do good work? Not at all. At least I don't think so in my experience. So, but what I want to do is, I'm going to go ahead and remove this bolt once again. And without torquing it, and this time I'm going to get a small regular size ratchet, a 3/8 ratchet. And I just want to snug it up. Let's see if that's enough to stop this thing from dripping oil. And if it holds oil just by having a snug drain bolt on it, that's good enough for me. And you know, whether it happens again in the future from someone over tightening it, I don't know the future. So let's just do what we can right now. Okay, so I was able to unscrew the new bolts without any issues. They came all the way out. I looked at the threads, everything looked nice and clean. So I just went ahead, put it back in. And this time I just used a standard length ratchet, 3/8, nothing crazy. And once the bolt touched the oil pan, after that just gave it a nice little snug. And it's holding, so I'm not going to push this, okay? We're going to leave it right there. It was nice and snug on a 3/8 ratchet. So let's go ahead and pour the oil back in it, and let's see if it's holding. Okay, so that's good enough. Let's go underneath the car and check it. So far it's looking pretty good to me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, continue pouring in all the oil, and we will top off the oil to make sure it is full. I have some new oil here thanks to the viewers. So if you send me that oil, you know who you are. Thank you, I appreciate it. We still have some of that brand new oil laying around, and I'm going to go ahead and use that to pour into this Honda Civic and get this woman back on the road and get her car back in the middle of winter. Okay, so I topped off the oil. We're nice and full up there. One more check down here. And I even double checked the bolt with the ratchet. It's nice and snug. So yeah, as you can see, it's not dripping. The final test is I'm going to go ahead, turn the engine on, and let everything get up to operating temperature. And come out here and check it one more time, because you know the oil, once it gets hot, it's going to become more viscous and it's more likely to leak or drip at that moment. So we're going to check it with the oil hot. Alright, so this car does not have a temperature gauge. It just has a little code light right there. So once that little blue light turns off, that's supposed to signify that the engine is up to temperature, I assume. So we're just going to wait for that light to go off. But even after it goes off, I'm going to let it run for like another 10 minutes just to make sure it's up to temperature. And we'll go underneath the car and check that drain bolt once again. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is that car that had the crazy amount of vibrations coming into the cabin because of the engine mounts. And it's nice to see, even on a cold start, it's perfectly quiet inside of here, and the steering wheel feels nice and smooth. No crazy vibrations coming through the steering wheel, so the new engine mounts we put on it are still holding up. So that's good to see, and we're just gonna wait now. Alright, so that little blue light that was right there before is now out. Temperature is almost at 150, which isn't full operating temperature, but it's good enough. And if we come down here, you can see the engine's been running for almost 19 minutes. So, oh, and I could also feel heat coming out the vents. So I think it's a good enough time to go ahead and check the drain bolt. The oil should be nice and warmed up now. Alright, so as you can see, it's not leaking. This car is all set. It's all good to go, and the owner can come pick it up. You know, I looked up a quick estimate of what it would cost to replace the pan on this thing, and it's quite expensive to replace the pan with parts and labor included. So I think the owner got away here. She got really lucky with, you know, at least for now. In the future, I don't know if someone's gonna end up stripping those threads out once again. You know, if it comes back to me, of course I would be really careful with it, but if it goes to anyone else, we just don't know what's gonna happen. But that's gonna be it for this one. It's not the first time I had to repair some threads like this. Last time I did it happened to be on a Honda Odyssey, that again uses another aluminum pan. So it's a super common thing on these aluminum pans, which really sucks, but it is what it is. You just gotta be careful when you're tightening down those things, and definitely do not use any impact guns. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something, and see you next time.